Hi Libra, and welcome to your January 2024 horoscope. Yes, it's a new year, which is super exciting. I hope you had a really nice 2023 and you're excited for what the new year has to bring. Overall, January is a powerful month. This is because Pluto is entering Aquarius, and we'll get later in the forecast into what this means for you personally. However, January is also really interesting because for pretty much the whole month, there is a sextile between Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn is in a water sign and Jupiter is in an earth sign. And this makes me think that the month will be quite practical, a month where we're really focused on both our physical needs, our bodily needs, as well as our emotional needs. But let's get into what the month means for you day by day. On January 1st, we have Venus in your second house, squaring Saturn in your sixth. You have been spending a lot of time, attention, and energy into your local community. Perhaps you've been volunteering, helping out your neighbors, spending time with your siblings. But at the same time, Saturn in your sixth house shows that perhaps you're also being asked to spend time on your health, really focus on establishing a good routine and good habits for yourself. And these two can feel at odds with each other because you only have so many hours in a day. It is possible to find the balance. Just try to assess on this day and make sure you don't skew too far in either direction. On January 4th, Mars enters Capricorn and it enters your fourth house. Mars entering your fourth house means that there will be a lot of passion, a lot of fighter energy, and a lot of assertiveness with your family. Perhaps it's also to do with your home. It doesn't have to be with your family. Perhaps you really need to fight to keep things in your home the way you want them to be. It could manifest as some not so nice arguments with your family, but it doesn't have to. It could also show up as having willpower and passion to really connect with them and to really form a stronger bond with them. And this fourth house will continue to get highlighted for you in January, especially on January 11th when there's a new moon in your fourth house. So the sun and the moon are in your fourth house, as well as Mars and Pluto. Even though Pluto is still about 9 degrees away from the sun and the moon, I do think that because the sun is moving towards Pluto and they're gonna meet later in the month, I do think that this new moon does still have quite a strong Pluto influence. During this new moon, there's also an interesting aspect between Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. Mars sextiles Saturn, Saturn sextiles Jupiter, and Jupiter trines Mars. And these three planets are highlighting your fourth, sixth, and eighth house. These are both quite internal houses. They're not necessarily houses where you see an outward expression of. The sixth house is our day-to-day routine. It's how we show up in our habits. The eighth house is all of the parts of ourselves that we don't talk to others about, like money and death. And the fourth house is, again, family. So for you, this new moon has a lot happening internally, even though to others, it might not seem like there's anything happening. So please take some time to see if you can remove yourself from some of those situations, to just allow yourself the headspace to think and to process. On January 14th, Venus in your third house is sextiling the South Node in your first house. So the South Node has been in your first house since November 2023, really asking you what parts of your personality are not really you and are part of you not wanting to stir the boat and disrupt other people. With Venus in your third house, you are getting some beautiful help in learning how to communicate better. So use this day to take notice of how you can communicate, how you can tell others about your boundaries without disrespecting them, but still honoring yourself at the same time. So take notes, because I think this could be a really useful day. You might learn quite a bit about communication that can help you in general in setting boundaries in a respectful way. Venus continues to travel through your third house. And on the 19th of January, it squares Neptune in your sixth house. There's the potential on this day to become disillusioned about your habits or about your service that you bring to the world. So if anything seems too good to be true on this day, take it with a grain of salt. Don't take any big actions on this day. Just try to wait a day or two and see if you still feel the same way later. Finally, Libra, we reach the big event. On January 20th, we have the Sun and Pluto conjunct in the final degrees of Capricorn. Just a couple of hours later, the Sun enters Aquarius in your fifth house. And on the 21st, Pluto follows suit and also enters Aquarius and your fifth house. Let's unpack this day one by one. Let's start with the Sun entering your fifth house. After spending a lot of time at home and considering your family, this shift shows that from January 20th until February 20th, you'll be spending more time pursuing your hobbies, more time having fun, more time going outside and spending time with other people. Because at the same time we have Pluto entering Aquarius or your fifth house, this is not just like any other fifth house transit. Pluto will be in your fifth house for 20 years. So you are for 20 years going to really learn how to find your purpose and your meaning through pleasures. Honestly, that's an amazing an amazing house to have Pluto in. I'm not kidding. Let's see, how could this manifest? For example, you find a hobby that makes you feel so alive and so motivated, and you radiate that with everything else that you do out there. But it could also manifest in another way, that you drown yourself so much in pleasures and good food and fun and alcohol that you forget to also spend time focusing on your long-term goals. So Pluto can really manifest in multiple ways here. Again, Pluto, it takes 20 years to go through your fifth house, so nothing needs to be sort of determined or figured out on these 2 days. Just notice, take a look at what's happening, and just know that this might be a reoccurring theme for the next 20 years. You already had a foreshadowing. This foreshadowing happened between March and June of 2023 when Pluto entered Aquarius for a brief time. Try to remember if anything happened during those couple of months, and you might get a good idea of what you can expect on these 2 days. On January 23rd, Venus enters Capricorn or your fourth house. We already talked about what Mars in your fourth house was bringing to you. And now that we have Venus also entering the fourth house, it's going to mellow out that energy a little bit. So you might find that the fighting or the assertiveness is a bit more mellow. And this time you're actually trying to also enjoy and have fun at home or with your family. On January 25th, there's a full moon in Aquarius in your fifth house. So the Sun and Pluto are in your fifth house, and the moon is in your 11th house. The sextile between Saturn and Jupiter is still very much happening during this full moon. Don't let the fact that this full moon is in more fun houses deter you or make you think that things are necessarily going to be easy, because Saturn and Jupiter are still in the 6th and 8th house. So really asking you to focus on the day-to-day, focus on routine and work, and with the 8th house to not forget that there are really, really crappy parts of life as well. Things like not having enough money, things like relying on other people, things like death as well. This full moon might reveal to you the ways in which you are out of balance, whether you are focusing too much on the future or perhaps not enough on the future and really just living in the present like there's no tomorrow. January 28th is also quite an interesting day. We have a couple of things happening on this day. First of all, Uranus goes direct. Secondly, Mars is squaring the North and the South node. And then finally, we have the aspect that was happening earlier in the month between Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter, now happening again, but this time with Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. Because this aspect happened on January 11th, but that time with Mars, look back to January 11th. It might give you a little foreshadowing of what you can expect on this day. Keep in mind this aspect is with Venus, so it might be a little bit easier. Mars squaring the nodes is happening in your angular houses. So Mars is in the 4th and the nodes are in your 1st and 7th. This might feel quite intense for you, Libra. These are quite sensitive houses and quite important houses. So really try to take care of yourself on this day. You might be in some sort of fight with your family or with your home, and it's really asking you to consider, are you really being your own individual? Are you setting your own boundaries? And where is that fine line between you as an individual and you in a relationship? We close off the month on January 30th with Mars in your 4th house, trining Uranus in your 8th house. Uranus in the 8th house is not very comfortable because Uranus is a planet of individuality, being your own person. And the 8th house is the house where you become vulnerable and share with others and you rely on others. And especially because Mars is also in this conversation, it might feel like a really uncomfortable day where you feel pulled between wanting to be honest and open with another human being, but also wanting to stand your ground and set your boundaries at the same time. So, Libra, January is the start of a 20-year period where you are learning the power and the purpose of enjoying our life. I know it can sound a bit like, oh, wow, amazing. I'm just supposed to enjoy my life for the next 20 years. But it can be a really powerful lesson that sometimes having beautiful materials, beautiful smells, surrounding ourselves with nice people and laughs can actually be the most purpose that our life could ever have. You know, perhaps our purpose on this earth is to be happy and to have fun. So I'm really curious what this 20-year period will bring for you, Libra. And don't forget to continue setting your boundaries with the South Node in your 1st house. I hope you enjoyed this forecast. I hope you have an amazing January. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch the February forecast as well. I hope to see you again soon.